Uh, let's get this over with then. So Star Wars Episode 1 The Phantom Menace is the first in the series, even though it was the fourth one to be released. Yeah, George Lucas says he did that because he was waiting for the right technology to come along at the time, but in all honesty the CGI is awful in this film, but I'll get to that later on. Now let's face it, the Star Wars prequels are not the worst movies ever made. They were just really disappointing. And in my opinion, The Phantom Menace is probably the best example of that. Now, because so many people have already reviewed The Phantom Menace and have picked it apart to almost the bare bone, there's not much else I can say. So in this review, I'm pretty much gonna, touch on points that other people have already brought up, but I'm gonna put my own spin on it, and that it's my opinions in the end. So from the very start, there is something not quite right with this film. The dialogue is a boring, cheesy, and unlike the originals, which was quite fun and, at times witty, one of the very first lines is one of those weird alien things going, "Oh no, now there are two of them." And it just doesn't... What was George Lucas thinking? Now, like I mentioned briefly at the start, the CGI in this film doesn't really hold up. Seeing that it came out in 1999, you'd expect some of it to, but most of it looks like a PlayStation 2 cutscene. Honest to God. I mean, just look at the fight at the end between the Gungans and the droids. It just looks like something from a PS1 or PS2 game. It's horrible. Now, one thing that I will give props to the prequels is that we saw Jedis in their prime. We saw them fighting like we have never done before. You did flips, kicks, using the Force, everything, which you didn't quite see in the originals because Obi-Wan Kenobi was very old and Luke Skywalker was only just learning how to become a Jedi at the time. And unfortunately you don't see it much in this film. I mean, you see it at the start, and I suppose you see it at the end in the Darth Maul fight, but you don't really see Jedis in their prime until Revenge of the Sith, or that last 15 minutes of Attack of the Clones. Another thing that I must mention about this film is how boring it actually is. It's pretty much 2 hours of people talking about trade negotiations and boring stuff like that. And in the originals, it kept moving. Like, the pace was there, everything, the score, the special effects, everything kept going at a specific speed. This, it's just like, there's your opening fight scene, and now we're going to have just 2 hours of people talking. And they don't even make the dialogue interesting. Can't believe I'm doing this, but compare it to Pulp Fiction, which I watched the other day actually. Again, not for the first time. And the opening scene where you got Tim Roth and Amanda Plummer talking at the cafeteria place. It's just so well done, and it's just two people having a normal conversation. Things like that, all the little things that they do, makes it more realistic and better. But in The Phantom Menace, it's boring. There's no emotion in the actors when they're talking. If they are talking, it's very static as well, because that's one thing I have noticed in this film. They're either sitting and talking, walking and talking, one sits while another walks and they're talking, or they're just standing completely still like statues and just talking. What the hell, George? What the hell? But honest to God, there is just like no emotion in the dialogue scenes. You'd expect something to be happening at the same time, like, for example, that first scene in Pulp Fiction. They're having a meal. They're talking about their job and they're moving. Even if they're just sat down, they're moving their body like this. But in The Phantom Menace, they're just static and talking to each other. It's like literally talking to a brick wall. This probably emphasises the fact that when George Lucas filmed this, none of it was like sets. It was just these little small sets on a blue screen, nothing else. He didn't go out, he didn't use like proper surround places. He just used blue screen, which didn't give the actors anything to react to. So it's literally, like I said in the Jurassic World review, but this is much worse in The Phantom Menace. It's pretty much staring at a tennis ball look. Now, moaning aside, there are a couple of positives in this film. Like I said, the lightsaber fights are actually pretty cool, even if it does look a bit too choreographed at times, which is a problem that a film The Raid had. There were times when it was borderline choreographed and you could see it looked a bit more like a dance than a fight. Another part of this film that was fairly interesting on the first viewing was the pod race. But watching it again, it still is kind of fun, except there's not much variation in like the way it's filmed and the way it's done. It's hard to explain really. It's just like when a child first saw this when it came out, they were awestruck, it was fun, it was exciting. But when you grow up and look at it, you just go, yeah, that's not as good as I remember it being. Which is really bad, seeing that one, it's Star Wars, and two, it's Star Wars. You want things to stick in your head. Like the originals did so well. They have memorable lines, memorable characters, and memorable scenes. But the prequels, especially this one, just has loads of forgettable things. And of course, there's Jar Jar. Yeah, I'm not going to talk about Jar Jar just because everything that could be possibly said about him has already been said, and I just can't add anything to it. I'm not even going to waste my breath talking about him, I'm just going to get straight on to the next thing. Something that I've seen a lot of people talk about when they're reviewing this film, and I've actually, thought about it recently, is the name itself. Now, each of the Star Wars films, the names make sense. The Empire does strike back. The Jedi do return. And I suppose there is a New Hope. But the prequels, yeah, the prequels are a little bit lacking on the name front. I suppose the third one, there is the Sith do get their revenge. And in Attack of the Clones, they don't really attack till the very end, but at least they keep up to the name, I suppose. But the Phantom Menace, it's just a name. There's no Phantom, and there's nothing menace. If you say Darth Maul is the Phantom, then there's not really anything menacing about him. It's just, there's nothing, it's just a name. It doesn't add anything to the story. It is literally just a name with Star Wars slapped on the front. Now, I was going to go into a bit more depth about the acting, but like I said before, there is not much to talk about. It's just really stale, wooden performances that don't go anywhere because they're just talking to a plank. It's ridiculous. It's bad. The acting is awful. Don't get me wrong, this film isn't awful. It's not The Room. It's not like that bad, but it is a huge disappointment, and that's what a lot of people say. It's not awful, it's just a massive disappointment. It's boring, it's not as fun, nowhere near as fun as the originals, but it's somehow rewatchable just because it's bad? I don't know, there are things that you can rewatch about it. I'm going to give it a 5 out of 10. I mean, yeah, it's not bad, it's just really disappointing. So that was my first Star Wars review for a series of reviews that will be up until December. If you enjoyed it, give it a like, subscribe, comment below. If that's another thing that I want to start doing. If you want to see me review a specific film, please give me your suggestions, write down in the comments or put it in the discussion thing that's on YouTube. Please, I want to hear your requests, and if I've seen it or if I have time to watch it, I will review these films. So anyway, thanks for watching, guys. See you in the next video, and yeah, remember to subscribe and like the Media Critic on Facebook. Bye!